Everyone, today we are at we're doing a Zoom this evening with the YPL, Yonkers Public Library. We have our host giving the talk from Sustainable Westchester regarding green energy. We have Paul Pressando and Dan Walsh. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. So my name is Paul Presende. I'm Outreach Manager for Sustainable Westchester. I'm joined with Dan Walsh, who is the Program Manager for the Westchester Power Program, which established the Community Energy Program that will be starting in Yonkers, starting March 1st. This Westchester Power Program has created similar programs available in 28 municipalities throughout Westchester County's Con Edison and NYSEG utility regions, and has been very successful with empowering members of the community with an optional electricity supply as opposed to default supply and default variable rates they're receiving by Con Edison. Today's talk is on what is green energy, telling you how it works, and helping demystify your energy choices so that you can know what you have control over on your own residential property and how you can partner with us at Sustainable Westchester to kind of become more energy smart. And I'll also let people know that next week we are going to be having another information session at the same time, but this will be teaching residents how to read their bills and so they can serve as co-equal partners with energy experts such as Dan Walsh to identify what you can do to make an impact on your utility bill while also being able to transition towards the technology that's available to residents in Yonkers. So I think with that being said, I'll give the floor to Dan Walsh, the Director of the Westchester Power Program.
Thank you, Paul. Let me go ahead and share my screen. As usual, we'll facilitate this with some slides. And once again, Sustainable Westchester is worth noting. We're a nonprofit, but we're a municipal membership nonprofit. So all the various villages, cities, and towns in Westchester are members, and they basically own, and then they direct the board, and the board then oversees us. So we're helping to build programming that helps move the needle for those municipalities, the things they want to do. It's a shared service in sustainability. And today, as Paul said, we're going to help to try to sort through things. There's been a lot of information flowing around on social media, and we're all sort of into the nuts and bolts of like, am I enrolled? Am I not enrolled? And we like to bring the context up a little bit. Again, Sustainable Westchester as basically the entire county. And very importantly, as we develop these programming opportunities for the municipalities, we're not the Sierra Club, or we're not an advocacy organization in the same sense. We're there to build programming to actually get things done and do it, very importantly, in the most economically effective way possible. And of course, of that programming, it's a high focus on energy related things, but that extends to all the sort of places where we use energy, including right down to our landscaping. And of course, we also have programs in recycling and all those kind of things. It's all built around the municipal participation and community participation and developing new options to give you more choices. We'll start again. This is not going to be a PhD on climate change or anything like that, but there is that context. It's very important context because these are things that are now here and local. It's funny, me being an old codger, when I think of climate change, like I go all the way back to like Bangladesh in the 70s and the concert for Bangladesh and all this stuff. And it was always something far away. And now we know it's not. Now we know it's here and affects us now. And we've always had storms, but they're coming more frequently and they're more powerful and they're doing more damage. And it is related to the temperature rise. We know, very simply, obviously it's going to be hotter, and that's bad enough by itself, right? As Yonkers becomes more like Louisiana, that's going to take some adjustment for us. And we want to try to mitigate that as much as possible. And of course, there are all the sort of traditional things that we think of when we talk about energy and the contribution of energy to our environment. And that's air quality. in our denser urban areas, even in Westchester, where, on a typical day, you can look out and see trees maybe, and it seems very pleasant, but we often have F-grade air quality in Westchester. And for the folks who are on the edge with asthma problems and things like that, that's a very materially significant effect on their life. We also like to point out that the climate change and trying to figure out how to make headway on that is very much a problem in the vein of the COVID problem, because it's a long-term problem, an endemic problem, and it requires cooperation. We can't just do our own thing, at home or on our own little street corner and expect to solve this problem. So, and while it is coming home, the global scale of things is part of what is bringing it home. And again, this is not going to be a big seminar on this, but the number of flags and signals that are out there that are going way beyond just it's a little bit warmer are at this point getting scary. The clock is ticking. We've got things like the Gulf Stream collapse. The Gulf Stream is this circulation of water in the Atlantic that mediates the colder northern temperatures by bringing up warmer waters from the south. If that stops, you can have another ice age they say Northern Europe is most at risk. You have melting polar ice. Everybody's seen those scenes and the rising sea levels that come with that. One thing that people don't understand is as it gets warmer, you think things are getting drier, but in fact, warm air holds more moisture. That's just the physics of it. And because there's more moisture up there, that's why these storms are then that much more powerful in the snows and the storms. You get these positive feedback cycles, which when one thing happens, it then continues to happen in a greater amount. So the melting of the permafrost releases methane. That methane is itself a greenhouse gas, which then increases the speed of the change. So you're in a cycle which is very hard to stop at that point. You got ocean acidification, which the ocean gets warmer, it holds more CO2, so there's carbon dioxide. That actually makes the ocean more acidic. We've heard about things like coral reefs being damaged and things like that, and basically the sea animal populations. Of course, right here in New York, we've got sea level issues. The estimates of the amount of work that's going to have to be done to mitigate that rising sea level are just astounding. And we all know that, no matter what the problem is, solving that problem or working on that problem earlier rather than later is usually the cheaper option. Trying to fix it later on is usually cheaper, but it does take some effort at the early stages to get at it. We have things like I don't know if any of you are on the emergency texting list from the county, but there's the stormwater and sewage releases that come because of these overflows. Obviously, the hot weather is a very straightforward one. That's something that is especially tough on the most vulnerable. And tends to be an environmental justice issue because typically the areas where folks have less economic resources or have traditionally been either redlined or some of these other conditions are the places with less trees and less cover from that. And again, evaporation is lowering water levels in some of these bodies of water. And there's, we don't even put it here, but that then threatens food production as well as providing a climate for more disease. Sorry for all that dark stuff. That's tough, but we do have some positive things to talk about because we're working together to try and make change and provide for a better future for our younger folks. As we talk about the need for green energy as part of this picture, it's not only that third column there, which is your direct electricity consumption, but we're talking about all these other pieces which are contributors to the carbon dioxide picture. You can see which are the big bars: transportation and buildings, and it depends on what you include in what. Sometimes you'll see versions of this which are a little bit different, but those are the two big pieces. And then, so what that means is that as we go along, we're going to have to electrify those pieces in order to fully green our energy economy and take advantage of the green electricity that we're driving. All of this is happening in a context where governments are moving at all levels, at the national level. And in New York State, we're fortunate to have a government which, for all its dysfunction at sometimes, has recognized this as a really critical issue and has ensconced that in a very aggressive policy. So we were doing that here in Westchester anyway, but we're very glad to have this framework to support that that effort. And so the core of our approach to looking at this and moving on green energy is to try and bring more renewable energy into the county and utilize. So I'm going to start a very short video here on buying green power. Everybody can hear me.
What is green power? We all know, right? The EPA defines green power as electricity produced from solar, wind, geothermal, biogas, eligible biomass, and low-impact small hydroelectric sources. How do you know you're getting green power? Not by identifying where the electrons came from, but rather by deciding who to pay. If more of us pay the green generators and fewer pay the dirty ones, the grid gets greener. But you can't just call the generator an order. There are a number of levels to the market. To further complicate, the power and the greenness can be separated. Each kilowatt of your usage is matched with an equal amount of clean hydropower through the purchase of New York State renewable energy certificates.
So that, let's see if I'm right, good. So that is just an effort. I think the takeaway from that is that, in some sense, it's a response to some questions we get, like, how do I know the electricity coming into my house is green? In a sense, the grid is a big pool of electricity, and you don't know where any given electron is going. So it's about maintaining that pool and your piece of it in purchasing electricity and what gets put in the grid on your behalf. So that's a little concept about energy, and when you're out there deciding what energy you're going to buy, and what we face as a program when we're buying energy. So the other piece of our strategy is the concept of buying in bulk as a community and engaging at the municipal level with our towns, villages, and cities, and the residents in there, because again, with the importance of what's going on, a clock ticking like this, that it demands that we work together on it. It can't just be everybody off doing their own thing to that extent. Even though as we do this, we want to maintain a full range of choice, but we need to scale our solutions. So that's kind of a word that we like to use at times. Is it's time to work at scale, and we have to make it easy for people to do. So that's the opt-out mechanism. You don't have to do anything to participate, and obviously, ultimately, again, the goal of this is to move faster and quicker towards a healthier environment and engage the community in this. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, and we just saw it in a sense in that bar graph that the power piece of this puzzle is actually the simplest piece in a sense, because it's big and it's bulk, and you just make your choice and you're done. But all those other pieces like transportation and buildings, they're like, that's like trench warfare, one building at a time, figuring out how to get that done. Everybody's transportation needs are a little different, and you've got transit and you've got cars and all the rest of it. So we view the power piece as like the most basic piece, and it's a first level of engagement with everybody. And importantly, it's got to be a broad-based engagement. We know the story of programming and resources that have not been accessible to many groups of people, either because they were not designed correctly or they simply weren't made available. So we want to make sure that these are broad-based programs, and only by doing that are we going to really have the means to make this transition. A little bit of sort of electricity 101 again, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but this is not, again, like an engineering thing. We just want you to know relative to your bill even, really. And on your bill, you'll have the supply section, and that's this act of deciding who's you're buying your power from. And in our case, of course, we're producing we're putting together a community option, but there are other options as well. Then it's how the power gets to your home. That's always going to be your utility. It's Con Edison up in the north of the county. It's NYSEG, New York State Electric and Gas. So, when the storms come and the lines go down and you're out, they're still the ones that are responsible for bringing the power back up, delivering the power to your home, and they still do the billing and all that. It's basically kind of a natural monopoly. It's a regulated monopoly because we're not going to have multiple sets of wires running around for individual, utilities. So that's always going to be through them. And then ultimately through this, we're getting that energy to you as a consumer. We've always had, or I won't say always, but for the past 25 years or so, we have had options other than Con Ed's variable rate supply. And that's in the form of these energy service companies. That they are the group in the sort of electric industry in New York that has the authority to offer power at the retail level. And so we're probably all pretty familiar with these companies to the extent that we all get solicited by them. And there are some decent companies out there and all, but there's also kind of a history of sort of Wild West type stuff and practices like slamming. And, in the worst case, you have brokers who are like knocking on seniors' doors and saying, you got to sign up because your power is going to be cut off or something. So, if you are out there and entertaining going out on your own, you just have to be careful and look at these contracts. Just like buying anything else important, you want to compare things. Some of those contracts, make sure you read the back page, because it'll say like, well, this rate is good for a month, and then you go on month to month. And a lot of us don't check our rates every month. Like, you don't look at your bill and say, was that 8.7 cents a kilowatt hour still this month? So it's just, you can do it, and some people do it successfully. It's just that you have to be much more actively involved. So the community program is kind of a hybrid, because we go out and in bulk, and we run a reverse auction to the same universe of ESCOs essentially, and then through that get the most competitive price we can, lock it in so that you don't have to worry about where it's going to go, and then you don't have to manage that situation anymore. And that's the program that has now been launched in Yonkers. Then just a little bit coming back to the specifics of that history, as Paul said, the actual enrollments are happening now starting in March, and they happen on your meter read date. So any change you make on whatever supply program you are in, whether you're in Con Ed and coming into, say, our program, or you signed up with an ESCO and you're going to that program, or you're coming out of our program, going back to Con Ed, which you can do anytime, that transition always happens on your meter read date. So if your meter read date is like the 12th in March, you're still in Con Ed up until that day, and that's when you start then. And then that means that you wouldn't see it on your bill until the next bill, because you're always looking backwards on that bill. The program is structured on a set of regulations that are put out by the state. So we're heavily regulated in what we have to do, and that dictated a lot of this outreach and the kinds of information that we have to put out there and the timing. And again, we already looked at that sort of simplified in industry breakdown, and it's only for your supply for that part. Con Ed still does the nuts and bolts of getting it to you. And again, the program's target is to provide renewable energy at competitive prices. But very importantly, we also have a standard supply option, which is materially cheaper. Instead of it's 8.7 cents, it's 7. I forget what it is, Paul. I think 7.3, somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah.
And we are happy for anybody who feels that's a better place for them to be, and for whatever reason, they get in touch with us. We can switch you over to that. So that's an important feature, and it's consistent with the whole theme of the program, which is that it's consumer friendly. Even though we have fixed rates, don't think of it as you're locked in. It locks in the supplier in supplying those rates, but you can come and go at any time. So you should think more accurately of the rates in the community program as kind of a cap. You'll never have to pay more than that. If for some reason you think it's going to be cheaper in Con Ed, maybe things change. That's not the case today, but then you can always leave, or you can go off to an ESCO. So it's designed to be completely consumer friendly. And this kind of restates a lot of that. It's about getting renewable energy and energy in general to the most affordable way, but safe, and you don't have to manage all that kind of the ESCO world out there. You get rate control by having that fixed rate. Very important to know, when you have a fixed rate and you're comparing it to the utility, where you never know what next month's rates is going to be, we can never say, oh, you're going to save money. We don't know that, because we can't project what Con Ed's rates are going to be. They're not transparent about that. They don't announce them beforehand. So we can just say we know that the process was competitive, and it's definitely good versus what's out there in the market. And we have right now we have a good sense that they're going to perform very well, but we can never say we guarantee savings. What we can guarantee is you'll never run into what we've seen in January, where people were hit with these terrible bills because of the spikes. So that's for sure. And this again talks a little bit about both those things, and I should have waited till the slide because this has the rates on it. So no guarantee of savings, but they are consistently competitive rates because we use an auction process to obtain them. And of course, when you're getting the renewable energy supply option, there's on the comparing it to Con Ed is kind of apples and oranges. It's also important to understand the tax bit. We did see some information going around, which was looking at we had a little note on the letter which said that the GRT, the gross receipts tax, would be on top of our fee here. That's always been there. That's been a part. If you're with Con Ed Supply, you pay GRT tax. If you're with us, you pay it. And it's just, it's not a new thing. So the taxes are the same no matter who you're with. So that ESCO option did provide people with opportunities to go out and make selections and find a situation. There are fixed rates available and whatnot. So that's there, and you still have that choice. You always have that choice. And Con Ed Supply is always there as well. Again, as we've said in our program, there are no penalties to leave or come or go. So you always can drop back to con ed if for some reason that's starting to look better in some way. Importantly, again, we wanted to go up a level on the context. And part of this is about building more and more on top of this basic platform and moving the needle even further on renewable energy. And part of that, of course, is in any discussion about renewable energy is going to turn to solar energy. And most of us have a good, basic idea of what goes on with solar energy. The sun hits these special materials, it loosens up the electrons, it creates a potential there, which is then tapped into, and you get an electricity flow. And that, when you put it on your own building, that's going to go first priority to any usage that you have. But you see over here on the right, 99.9% of the solar building installations that we see in an area like ours are going to be grid connected. So when you produce more than you need, the extra will go back out into the grid as part of kind of what we looked at with that kind of representative drawing where everybody's dumping it into a big bucket. You'll be part of contributing to that bucket. You get credit for all of it, even if you're not using it at the moment. So that allows you to get full credit for all the kilowatt hours generated if you are say a homeowner or even a business who's put solar on your building. So grid connected is something to understand there in terms of a solar installation on a building. But in the past few years, we're no longer limited in terms of who can participate in the solar opportunities to people who have roofs to contribute to that. Either they're on their own home or their business. So we have plenty of people, they live in apartments, or perhaps you live in a townhome, and many of the condominiums, you don't have the right to make any changes on the roof. So in that way, even though you live there and you're the only one there, you can't make changes on that roof. You can't put solar on that roof. I think that's actually going to be changing under law soon, but so you may be limited. So in that case, you now have the ability to subscribe to a remote solar farm and derive some of the benefits to it. And these days, under the programs that we have developed, you're getting up to a 10% discount on your bill. So it's kind of your reward for being a part of driving more clean energy onto the grid, and it's driving it very locally onto our grid because these are facilities that are within our own utility district. So that's another benefit. But the great thing is you can do this. It is separate from the supply program, which is where we kind of started. It's not, you're not actually getting those kilowatts, and you're not getting, it doesn't show up on the charge on your kilowatts. You just get $1 credit on your bill as if you like overpaid or something like that. And I, half jokingly like to talk about this as kind of free money, for doing this. It is, there are sort of limits on the availability because it's project by project. We work with developers and they have a new project and it's like 2 megawatts and it's enough for 400 households or something like that. And then we go out and we find people who want to sign up for that. So it kind of comes and goes. There are some available seats right now on our site that can be signed up for. So then we have these two different options. If you're looking at, how could solar benefit me? How could I be a part of that or do something beneficial there? If you do have access to your roof and you have that opportunity, that can be the most beneficial. And I think I would add here, not only the savings benefit, but I believe it's also the most beneficial in some sense environmentally, because that's solar, clean energy that never would have been on the grid. So we need all of the above today. You would be making a big contribution in that case. If you're going to go that route, if you have that opportunity, which is a great opportunity, you want to do, again, as you would do with any important purchase, and get multiple offers, get the solar installers. The best thing, the NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which is kind of the arm of the state that implements all the energy programs in the state. They have a list of qualified installers that participate in their program and in their evaluation, their programming, and can tap into the discounts that are available. And it's good to go by that list because there's at least some level of vetting as to the successful work of these installers. And then you could take that and winnow it down even more to, say, firms that are right here in the Westchester area and things like that. But you would get multiple offers. You'd look at both the one-off cost, but often you would want to go by the dollars per kilowatt, for example, and compare that, which will tell you basically how economically effective they are in getting the most power for the buck. So you would need to make an evaluation of what you're being offered there, and getting multiple offers is the way to do that. But if you're not in a position to do that, there is the community solar opportunity, and in that case, you don't have to be thinking about what is the return on my investment and things like that. You just sign up and you're a part of it, and it does take a couple of months before all the registration goes through, and sometimes, again, it's project by project, so sometimes you're waiting for that one to launch, but ultimately it's easier in that sense, and within the confines of whatever your situation is, you can choose between these two options. As we mentioned earlier on, I'm just throw a few slides and concepts in here. We're not going to get all the way where we need to go unless we start electrifying things. Buildings is the biggest piece. We looked at transportation as well. We're used to heating our buildings primarily with fossil fuels, with gas. If you have a standalone home, you may be using fuel oil. And of course, as long as we're doing that, we're still burning fossil fuels. We need to electrify our heating and cooling. So there are now great technologies out there, and there's a lot of options in terms of qualified people who really understand this stuff. It's important to get qualified people because you have concepts like airflow and air changes that are related closely to indoor air quality. So, and this is one of the benefits sometimes of starting to look at your opportunities in upgrading your home, because you can, obviously there's an idea like I can save money on my heat and be more efficient, but it also can yield a better indoor air quality. So those actions that you can take, of course, they include insulation, and there's newer technologies for that, and air sealing. It does include looking at the air changes, and it includes new heat pump options, which are both air source heat pumps, which are a lot like air conditioners, really. When you see these split air conditioners, it's hard to even tell the difference. They just work both ways, so that you can exhaust the heat out, or you can bring the heat in. Even when it's cold outside, you can extract heat from a cold air, believe it or not, and send it into your home. You're basically moving heat, and that's what makes it more efficient. But they also have now ground source heat pumps, which are even more efficient, because now you're tapping into a starting source, which we all know once you get below 6 feet underground or something, it's a constant 50 plus degrees. So that makes it even more efficient. So our approach to this is to make these technologies available, because we want to get at, again, the burning of fossil fuels, improve your indoor air quality, and reduce your costs. In order to do that, we want to make sure that we're guiding everybody to all the resources that are available. There's programs under the New York State, again, NYSERDA, that we have access to and are able to direct people to, and they run a range of different opportunities, including some special benefits for folks who qualified for lower income status that can tap into these and be able to make some of these important improvements that they would otherwise not be able to afford. So our team is ready to direct people to those great opportunities and help guide them through that. Other things, opportunities come up sort of technology wise around this periphery of the basic supply. This program that we call Grid Rewards is a program which will help get at some of the dirtiest power production that is out there, which is the peaker plants. And probably you've now heard some about this. It's been a real, almost a campaign to try and reduce the usage of peaker plants. These are the old plants that they kind of put on the side until like the summertime peaks come and they have no other alternatives, and they flip the switch, and it's like they're always located in some neighborhood that's always borne the brunt of these things for way too long, and maybe they're oil fired, a lot of particulate matter, and so we want to mitigate them, not use them as much as possible, shut them down if we can, and there we have a program which helps make some progress on that count. It's called Grid Rewards. It's a demand response program. So when those peaks come, if we all could reduce a little bit during that time, then they won't have to flip those dirty plants on. Now, this is a kind of approach which has been going on in the commercial world for some time, where Con Ed will send out a call. We're going to have one of the worst days, and usually there's like 3 of them or 4 of them a year, and the peak is always late afternoon, about 4 hours. They send out a call to big commercial factories and things like that, and say, if you reduce during this time, we will pay you. And they pay like significant dollars. It's like if your normal kilowatt hour charge is 20 cents a kilowatt hour, it's like 10 times that much or something. So we have worked with a technology supplier to make participation in this available to just individual households by, of course, aggregating it together. So we can obtain the payments from that same program. So we started this last year with the first batch, and it was like 300 or 400 in our sort of pilot year. And the folks that participated, they get an app. Of course, there's an app, right? You get an alert. And it doesn't mean that you have to go crazy, but a lot of people would say if your normal air conditioner setting is like, 69 degrees, well, you know what? You bump it up to 73 degrees. You let it get a little warmer. Or a lot of people start to get savvy about it, and they pre-cool. They know that the peak, this call is going to be starting at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, whenever it is, and they'll cool down to 64 degrees early on, and then be able to just basically shut it off and ride through. And people were earning anywhere from like $50 to several $100 for these 3 events in the summer. So meanwhile, so you made a little money, you kind of had fun playing the game with this, and you did something good in helping to reduce the usage of these peaker plants. And we hope to really expand. We've got good subscription to this. It's easy. It doesn't cost you anything. You get this app and you sign up. So it's really something with a good future to it. Again, as we look at all these problems, we all have to do our individual thing, but it's really important that we look at how we can come together and really leverage our collective. And by doing that, we all get more powerful in terms of the impact that we have. We couldn't do these things on our own, right? So you can look at the programming that's going on. We have Westchester Power now rolling out in the city, and that's a great start. There's the solar opportunities that we talked about, heating and cooling, and things like Grid Rewards. And those are all fairly easy to do. The heating and cooling, that takes some work, but it can't hurt if you think there's an opportunity there, to talk to our people and bring in and get some offers. And the way I always look at it, if you end up cash positive, if your savings on heat are better than, say, any financing that has to happen in order to get it done, and you net out positive month to month on it, you've just kind of made yourself some money and made your home more comfortable.